You're listening to episode 201 of the Edible Valley podcast. On this episode, we're talking cooking profession. Do you ever wonder where your food comes from? That's what got us started on this adventure.
In each episode, we ask experts to weigh in on the food topics that matter to you, from growers to producers to chefs.
And I challenge John, Darren and you to learn more about your food and the stories behind it. From our hub on Vancouver Island in the beautiful Comox Valley, join us as we explore our Edible Valley. Well, good day to you. This is another Edible Valley podcast. I love these. John, 201.
We're 201. We're at that point now, yeah.
I almost want to race to 300 now.
Yes.
Should we just do loads of podcasts?
We're just going to keep doing this, you know what? And trying to keep people interested and listening to their feedback about what they want to learn
Absolutely.
about food.
Yeah. Well, we're doing it. We're doing it for you. You person listening right now. You are the ones we're doing it for.
Exactly.
So, we've been talking about this a little bit. We are going to be changing up the podcast a little bit. Now, there's two things to mention. First of all is the change, but the second thing is we're still going to be doing the old school Edible Valley podcast episodes, but we're also going to be adding in something a little bit new. So, John, tell me about this. It sounds exciting.
Well, we've all decided to do our own little pet little projects. Like, we've all got interest in certain things, so we've all sort of wanted to jump in and do our own little description of everything. So for me, I was thinking about, let's talk about the cooking profession. Let's talk about what it's like to be a chef. Let's get into the nit and gritty. I'm putting the question out today. What does it take to be a chef?
Okay, and you've got a lot written down there with some numbers. So can I assume that this is going to be a running series for you?
This is going to be a running series. So I'm starting out, basically, I've got the next couple weeks, actually it's going to be months, with the regular podcast, like doing our interviews and finding about where people cook food and how they cook food. This is my aspect of sort of sitting down and just focusing on specific characteristics within the industry, and especially being a chef. So I want to showcase, today we're going to talk about traits of a chef.
Great.
Like some of the things that the good things, the bad things. And then next episode, I want to get into where can you work in the food industry? Like, where can you be a chef? Like, different aspects of it. I also want to get into the history of restaurants and how they evolved. Wow. And some of the key characters who sort of changed the food industry that we work in now. We can't do this without describing the brigade system.
Yes, absolutely, because that is something that's actually alien to me. But I've heard about it, and it's this thing, but it would be nice to have it broken down a little bit.
Yeah, well, it's basically how the kitchens are based around the military. And it's a brigade, and everyone has a position and a responsibility. We're going to break into that and learn some of those funny French terms. I want to talk about some kitchen management, basically, running the house, the stuff that you have to deal with that's not just food related, the other things. Another thing, restaurant or menu design, as well, maybe a little bit of restaurant design. How you design your menu to reflect on what your restaurant is or what your food establishment is doing.
So all of these things come together, and as forever the layman in these conversations, it's really interesting to know, because you walk into a restaurant, it's really easy to think that they just threw everything together. But restaurants are an absolutely savage business. You essentially need to learn to do 3,000 to 4,000 things regularly, with loads of moving parts, like the lives of the staff, for example. I don't know, pandemic, things like that. And this is just one of those areas.
Well, that's it. And I want to hit some of those things. I want to talk about food science, food safety, restaurant safety. There's a huge list of things that I want to go over. I want to talk about uniforms. Right. There's a lot of effort has gone into designing a chef's uniform, which no one knows anything about, or very few know anything about why our chef's jackets are how they are and why we wear those funny white hats, right?
Amazing. So next time, after you've heard this series of podcasts, next time you go into a restaurant with some friends or family, maybe there's a lull in conversation. You can say, hey guys, let's talk about the uniforms of the chef. Did you know? You know, I mean, these things are really interesting.
Yeah, and you know what? I find like I love this profession, and I've been doing it for years, and almost too many years. When I start looking at it, I've been in the industry for 31 years now. I just looked that up the other day, and it shocked me.
You're old.
I'm a little old, yeah. I still have a baby face, so it's okay. But I wanted to really showcase some of the things and what it's like to be in the kitchen. So let's get on to that. As I'd like to say, it's time to tattoo up and show off those cuts and burns. And we're going to learn a little bit about what it's like to be a chef.
Fantastic. So how this is going to work is this is going to be part of a series. So if you're interested in this, then just follow the series. The next episode will come, but it will follow that theme. So it's going to allow you, and we hope it allows you, to get really expert in something, to really, really fundamentally understand something like this. And I'm going to learn. I'm ready to learn. John,
all right,
let's go.
Let's get started. I want to say welcome to the kitchen, and I mean this isn't a real kitchen. Hopefully you're sitting at home or in your car enjoying life as it can be. So what I want you to do is go up to your thermometer and crank it as high as you possibly can.
You can see where this is going.
Now close your eyes and I'm going to put some background sounds of the kitchen, dishes clanking. You know, and all of a sudden you've got the chef online throwing the frying pan on the stove top, you know, yelling out to the whole kitchen staff, you know, pick up on table 7. I need a rush.
Oh, the sound of the machines.
The machine going, order on. You know, someone's like, I forgot to fire appies on 24. I'm all in on 16. I need a runner. Food's in the window. We have a pickup on 26.
Yeah.
You know, how many on the floor? All of those fun things.
And it's 110 degrees. Don't forget that.
Don't forget that.
Yeah.
You're sweating and you're going, and now you're wearing a mask.
Oh. Yeah.
So I'm not really painting a good picture.
It's true. And, you know, I remember I worked in a place called The Harvester in the UK for a while doing dishes, and I was constantly complaining I wanted to do more. So they put me on the grill. They specialize in grilled steaks.
Yeah.
And I was there for 2 minutes, and it's like twice the heat of an oven. And I was like, no, straight back to the dishes. So John is not joking here. Unbelievably hot.
It is hot. It is fast paced. And if you are not into multitasking, this is your ultimate nightmare.
Yeah.
It is your ultimate nightmare.
Yeah.
You know, part of being a chef is being a multitasker and being on top of everything. Now, on the flip side, you are part of a team. And I think that's the most rewarding part of this, is that you're with a group of individuals that are all working together to get the same thing done.
Yeah.
And that camaraderie is what really puts kitchens together. And you can tell good kitchens from bad kitchens just by how the team is meshed together and how they work together in this time of craziness. You know, there's also the joys of you are never complimented more than as a chef. Like there is a lot of criticism, and it can be, you know, people pick apart, but at the end of the day, I guarantee every restaurant, no matter how bad service is, someone will walk out there and go, thank you very much for making a meal for me today, you know, or you did really great, or people say, you know, thank you so much. You know, you're going to get that no matter how bad you think you did. There's going to be someone who appreciates the hard work you put in. So
and what does that mean to you? Because, I mean, as a customer, you leave the restaurant, you see busy folks in the kitchen, maybe there's a radio on, you don't know if they can even hear you. But what does that mean to you if you shout thanks on the way out?
Oh, man, that's like, it just lifts you up. There's nothing more rewarding than someone coming in and going, thank you so much. And you're just like, oh, You're very welcome. You know, it sort of puts in perspective everything you've just done for that whole day.
And how about if the server sends their compliments like in that old school way?
The servers, you blow them off after a while. But no, you know, you do. You get that appreciation.
Yeah.
You feel that it's that teamwork together, right?
Great.
Like, you know, they're doing a hard job, you're doing a hard job. And sometimes things flare up in the middle.
Yeah.
But it's one of those ones at the end of the day, most people can just, you know, let everything go that worked over the last couple hours and just be like, you know, join together as a bit of a family. Because most restaurants are a family when it comes down to it. A bit of a chaotic and
dysfunctional
family, but it works out. Now, here's the question is, you want to become the top dog.
Right.
Do you want to be the head chef?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
no, actually, but yeah.
No, you know what?
For the sake of this, I couldn't hack it.
Yeah, well, becoming a head chef it's a long process. You know what? And it's a constant learning process. That's what I really enjoy about this. I find that I'm always learning something new, and there's always some aspect of the industry that can challenge me. You know, it's not like I come into work every day and I have to do the same thing. I'm not just flipping burgers. I'm, you know, managing staff. I'm fixing equipment. I'm making sure the food is coming in. You know, there's a huge long list of responsibilities I have got going. And for me, it's enjoyable, you know.
Yeah.
It's a bit stressful some days, you know. There's that panic that you look at the clock 5 minutes before someone's shift starts and you're like, are they going to show? Are they going to show? Are they going to? And then they show and you're like, okay, we're good, you know. So you do have those things. But I had created a bit of a list here of sort of things that are sort of chef related, and that sort of gives you things that you should, if you want to take on this profession, say you're younger, or, you know, you think you just are interested in getting into the industry, and you can see the person that you're going to be working under, what you can expect from them. These are a couple characteristics. I mean, here's one I like to start out with. Do you feel you're a competent person?
Wow. So do you feel you're a competent person?
Yeah, like think about that, because you have to have some competency. You have to have an ability of knowing what you're doing, and you have to have respect from your team.
Right. So that will show in how you feel about yourself.
That will show in how you feel about yourself. So you have to put that out to there. Another key thing is having a palate.
Okay.
Being able to taste flavors, because that's going to be your job. There is nothing worse than in my day when I walk around the kitchen and someone's like, "Can you taste this, chef?"
Really?
And then I'm like, "Have you tried that?" And they're like, "No." And I'm like, "You try it first, because if it's off."
Yeah.
I don't want to find that out the hard way.
yeah, that is gross.
Yeah. And not that it happens a lot, but there's that odd thing that just sits out too long and doesn't get used that you got to be on top of, and you got to be that. And you also have to make sure that the food going out to your customers is top notch, right?
Yeah.
Like, did someone put too much salt in something? Did they put not enough salt in something, you know? So you're constantly going around. I always have 2 spoons in my pocket. One that goes in my mouth and one that goes in the dish. And so that way I can take out a little bit of sauce, put it in my spoon, and then stick it in my mouth.
Oh, I never would have thought of that.
Yeah, no cross-contamination.
No double dipping. Yeah.
Or I have 30 spoons and I just keep throwing them in the bin. So, you know, just a couple things. Here's another thing. To be a head chef, you need experience. And the only way to get experience is to get into a kitchen. And I always recommend starting on the bottom. If you want to do this as a profession, start dishwashing. You're going to find out if this is for you or if it's not. We'll talk a little bit later about some of the negatives of the industry, but as in, this is getting the experience and being able to know each section of the kitchen, so you can sort of identify and know how it works. I know when I came into locals, it was quite difficult for me because I was thrown right in the top. And I had not had much experience. Sure, I was going to say much experience. Yeah, much experience in that restaurant, in how each station worked. So it was really thrown headfirst in, and I got one station sorted out, then the next station sorted out, next station sorted out. And I had a very weak team, and it's not that they were weak, they were inexperienced.
Right.
They hadn't had the experience in those positions to really be able to do everything efficient and do really good quality, right? They did great work, and I'm amazed with the team I had, but it was always a struggle every day to be like trying to have that know how to make each dish in your section. So getting that experience in that section is a key to it.
And I was living with you at the time, and you'd come in from work and I'd be watching the TV. Said a lot about our lives at the time. And straight away you could see that you'd had that stress, and you were getting more and more determined and guided, because you knew what you needed to do. You needed to go around each area and just focus and just lift each person up one bit at a time. And slowly you started to get that momentum, but it is painstaking by the looks of it.
Oh, and it never stops. Yeah, you never have to stop readdressing things. It's a constant. Someone will always forget to label and date something. Yeah, someone will always put something on the wrong shelf, and it's just bringing that back. And
it's not just cooking a chicken, making sure it's the right temperature.
Yeah. Another great helpful fact in being a chef, and this is probably goes without saying, a knowledge of food. Right. There is so much to learn about food. You can get so into one particular dish that it will be overwhelming. What was the one? Oh, I picked up the cookbook, The Modernist Cuisine, years back. And I literally spent an hour just reading about frying pans and how the heat transfers between it. And so just taking on that knowledge, it hurt my head after about an hour of it, because I was really intense on okay, so if I'm using a steel pan versus aluminum pan versus, how the heat transfer affects and how that transfers onto how your product is cooking, right? So if it transfers heat quick, you get a faster sear. But then if it's too hot, then you burn things, back and forth. So it's a knowledge, and that's a knowledge of equipment, but that's also a knowledge of food. What do you do with the tomato? What are all the uses you can use that fruit for? Those are the kind of the interesting things to work with. And that goes on to menu planning. So that's another big aspect of being a chef. Being able to reutilize things, to keep it's so easy for someone to create this beautiful menu with all these really intricate details on it that sounds really great, beautiful, and flavorful. Now it's another thing to build a kitchen around that can hold 4,000 different ingredients.
Yeah. Is that the average amount of ingredients?
You know what? I'm really just spitballing, but thinking about my inventory, I probably have over 4,000 ingredients in my inventory, right?
That blows my mind. Wow.
If you start thinking about it, I have 10 different types of rice in my dry storage. Yeah. I've got 4 different types of flour. No, 5, 6, 7 different types of flour if I'm going to throw in gluten-free flour and chickpea flour. So there's all of these things. So it's being able to take that, manipulate that around so that you can have something that you have some cross-utilization. So let's say you have a sauce that you use on your breakfast. I have a romesco sauce, and then we use it again on a sable fish at night, and so we can transfer that. So then the product's being used. That's a big thing, is just being able to predict shelf life. How much of one container to make of something for a day.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that go into there. So now I'm coming to one of my favorite things that I like to talk about. And I think it's something that in our lives in general, most of us don't take into account, but it's about respect. And to me, respect is a big word. You have to be able to respect your staff, respect their needs and respect who they are, as well as respecting the ingredients that you're working with. Yeah. Your customers. There's a lot of people. And this is not saying that you have to be yes, and let people do whatever they want. But you have to be hey, this is what I need done. This is what I expect of you, So I like working with that.
And, I've worked in places where that definitely wasn't the case, where you had excellent chefs, but one part of that ingredient goes and everything goes downhill. Then you get open arguments, you get the food coming out wrong, you get swearing, customer complaints, customers go on TripAdvisor. I mean, it's just one thing like that you miss and everything goes downhill fast.
It's really, and it's funny, I've found, and I've worked it, and I've caused it, but having that positive atmosphere in a kitchen and that negative atmosphere in a kitchen. And I know a lot of old school chefs, you know, the kitchen nightmare, Gordon Ramsay, you know, flipping a plate in someone's face. You do that to someone online in the middle of a dinner rush, you've got two things are going to happen. They're going to walk out, and you're down a person. And for the rest of the day, they're going to be struggling because they have been personally hurt.
Right.
You know, so, you know, like, it goes without saying, like, if I come up to you and call you incompetent, and then I'm like, now do this food better than you've ever done before, you're going to be like self-doubting yourself. You're going to be in this like miserable atmosphere, and it just sucks away from your whole kitchen. So yeah, I guess that's an HR thing. Like you're managing not only this food, you know, but you're managing people and trying to keep them positive and produce excellency, right?
Yeah.
Which goes into my training, right? Like, you know, if people screw up in a kitchen, it's on you. You're the top dog. You don't turn around and say, oh, was that salad cook because he doesn't know how to do salad? It's like, you never taught him how to make salad. You didn't know. That's part of my job is if someone screws up and sends out something wrong, that's on me because I wasn't there to train them. And I take that very, you know, I take that as a very big thing. And then it makes me go like, look back at my staff and go like, okay, so I have to readjust how we're working and make sure you guys know exactly what you're expected of, because sometimes people don't know what's expected of them. Right. Or when you're communicating, which is another big thing in the industry, is communicating, being able to talk to people and tell them what your expectation of is. I don't know how many times I've laid out things for people. I'm like, this is how we make this sauce. I want you to cut the onions, saute them, add the garlic, and then I walk back and everything's in the pot and they haven't like spaced out how they're going to cook the thing. And you get a different product, right? Like if you're not cooking it down, like making tomato sauce, right? Saute your onions, saute your garlic, put your seasonings in, add your tomato, reduce down. Whereas I've walked in and like raw onions, tomato sauce, everything in a pot, and I'm like, okay, so we weren't listening to the directions, you know, and so you have to reinforce that. So yeah, there's a lot of high expectations in a restaurant. Wow.
So many moving parts. And we're not even there yet.
We're not even there yet.
Do you want a job? Is this your recruitment advert?
I know, I'm making this hard. I am going through, as I'm saying, high expectations. You have to be able to deal with conflict, and you know what? You're the top dog, and that is sort of the key things you should be thinking about. Is this something that you're interested in? Now, I want to talk about downsides real quick. Yeah, and then we'll talk about why I love it. There is a physical demand on you. The 9 to 5 thing doesn't exist in a kitchen. So that is a hard thing for people to understand.
Not at all.
Yeah. So you miss out on the social aspect of the life. You know, like you work holidays, you work weekends, you know. I'm lucky that we take some holidays off where I work, which is nice, but a lot of restaurants do. It can be stressful. It can be very stressful. There's a panic, the expectations. I get this pit in my stomach before every service that I'm like, is everything ready? Like, I'm like going through everything in my head, you know, especially if, you know, like I'm making sure, have I got the eggs? Have I got this? Have I got this? Like running that list through. And so those stresses are always, I'm going to admit the pay sucks.
Yep. Hospitality pay, not that good.
And I shouldn't say that because I think it's getting better, because I think things are changing around in our industry quite a bit. I think people are realizing that it's not just, you know, an entry level position. It's not something that you just walk off the street and get into. There's a huge group of people that have spent a lot of time and a lot of energy and really care about what they're doing who are going into this industry. And if you like working 12-hour shifts without sitting down or having a break, this is the life for you.
Yeah. Wow. That's all. I already feel like that's very, very daunting. But, you know, what is work for somebody, it might be, you know, actually joyous for somebody else, because some people are very good at doing those things that you've just described.
Yeah. Well, for me, I love it. I love it. I love the fact that to me, it's not a job, it's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
So my whole life revolves around my restaurant. And I know a lot of people don't. They like to separate their work from their life. But I like to embrace both because I love food and I love what food allows you to do. It allows you an opportunity to communicate. You can always have a conversation with another person over food.
Yeah.
You know, it's an instant icebreaker. You know, like you don't know someone very well, talk about food.
Yeah.
You'll get around. You may not like their ideas, but there's a conversation, right?
I think one of the first things I said to you was that I'm a really good cook, and you were very interested by that, obviously. And then I revealed that I just add cheese into everything. and when I say I'm a good cook, my family are like, "Oh, this is so nice and cheesy." Literally good at grating.
Right. Yeah. So that was one. You know what? As I brought up before, there's a team atmosphere within the industry, right? Like these are your brothers, your sisters, like you look at the owners as your parents, right? Like, there's advice from people, like you've got this team, like, and support system, right? Like some people may argue with me on this and sometimes, but I feel like the kitchens I've worked in, I've always tried to build in some sort of support to it. I'm very demanding on my staff and require a lot out of them, but I'm always trying to be there outside of the work if they need me, so it's always it's interesting. What other aspects of it? You know what, you're never gonna go hungry.
Oh yeah, correct.
You know what, like, as I'm saying, as a chef, you're always sampling. There's food always around. Most places have a staff meal included within the system. So you know what, if you start looking down, like I looked at what I spend on groceries outside. I have nothing in my fridge at home most of the times because I'm eating at the restaurant, and that's part of that. I'm always there, but like I'll have 2 or 3 meals there or whatever over the week, and it's good, and it keeps you into it, right? Like, we do the staff meal and we challenge each other to do dishes for each other, so it's like changing it up every day so that there's something new, something interesting. Using up what we have, and then everyone gets to taste what's on the menu too, so they have a little bit more of understanding of what they're serving.
Right.
I think that's a big aspect of the industry.
And then, during the lockdown when we were living together, we decided we were going to, after 2 days of sitting in front of Netflix, eating, a popular brand of low quality potato chip product, shall I say?
Right.
We decided we were going to get fit. We made our own. We went to Canadian Tire. We made our own TRX, which is like fitness using your own body weight with ropes, basically.
Of course, yeah.
Which was a death trap, by the way. Anyway,
we learned something.
How does all this tasting? How does that inhibit your fitness goals?
Well, they say you can never trust a skinny chef.
Oh yeah, okay.
But you know what? For me, it can be a bit of a hindrance. But I've been fairly fit. I think I put on more weight over the shutdown, the 3 months that I was off, even though I was doing an emergency kitchen. But like I feel like I'm so active. I'm on my feet all day long. Yeah. So it works out in its own benefit. And it really depends on you as a person, whether you're active. Like, I know a lot of people in the food industry and the restaurant industry, especially cooks and chefs, are a bit of adrenaline junkies. Right. And I don't think people make that connection. Like, a lot of the people I know are active outside of the restaurant. So a lot of them do it because they want to go skiing. They want to be able to, they like mountain climbing, or they like getting out in the woods every few days, or they're cyclists, they ride to work every day. I've got a couple cooks that ride to work. These are just some examples of some of the people I work with, what they do on their spare time. So, and I'm an avid outdoorsy person too, which is funny because I spend 90% of my life inside. So when I'm on my days off, I find myself, I'm out and about. I'm going to go.
You have to make the most of that.
Yeah. And the only thing that keeps me inside is podcasts and talking.
There it is. Okie dokie. Yeah, brilliant. Sorry, We do. Let's just full disclosure, because obviously something happened there when I went, oh yeah, and it was silent for a second. We shouldn't hide these things. We like to think that we've got this James Bond-esque signaling system between each other. Wrap it up, hurry up, all keep on talking. It's just like, what was that gesture you just gave me?
I was like, I
feel insulted.
No, I think this was time to. We're gonna cut this one here.
Yeah.
And then we're going to look at doing, we'll get talking about our next episode in a couple, probably next month, actually, because we have a lot of other things coming down the pipeline with the Edible Valley. So
we've got Edible Valley, as usual, Edible Valley Old School. We've got Darren doing his old, Darren is going to do his own series as well. Yeah. So you can follow all of them, some of them. I'm even going to be doing one or two of them. So this is going to be a really interesting time. There's going to be more content. If you want more of Darren and John, you got it.
And Will.
And to an extent, me. Great. Thank you so much, John. You've obviously put a lot of work into that. You've got tons of notes, and your experience speak for itself. So thank you very much for that. We look forward to the next series, probably, or the next episode in this series in about a month.
Excellent.
Perfect stuff. This has been the Edible Valley Podcast, episode 201. I'm William. I'm the producer.
I'm Chef Jonathan Fraser, and thanks for listening.
And that wraps up another episode of the Edible Valley Podcast. Thanks for tuning in, and a special thanks goes to the local businesses that help support our podcast. They make it possible for us to showcase your local food community. We'd love you to follow us on your preferred social media at Edible Valley, where you can check out our blog, find recipes and tips, behind the scenes, and of course keep a lookout for where we are going to turn up next in your Edible Valley.
201 of the Edible Valley Podcast. Today we're talking about the cooking profession.
Great, can I just say something? You can use that. Give it a bit more spotlight. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, what does this say? I forgot to mention. I knew I had something. Right, so I looked into the analytics.
And this has been an Edible Valley production.
Yeah. Beep, 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 beep. Okay, ready again?